Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, my name is Tristan Mortlock. I am MCA Master 3000 qualified and I've been working at sea for almost 2 decades. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the collision that happened between a sailing vessel and an aircraft carrier. So let's get into it. On Friday, November 12th, 2021, a Polish sailing vessel, 10 meters in length, collided with the French naval flagship, the 262-meter, 858-foot, 42,000-ton aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle. The incident happened at around 0730 local time, about 40 nautical miles southeast of the Yacht Islands. Reports state that once the deck officers had spotted the sailing yacht, they pulled an emergency maneuver to avoid collision, but it was too late and the two vessels collided. The only person on board the sailing yacht was the skipper. Fortunately, no injuries or loss of life was reported. The sailing vessel did lose its mast in the collision, but did not suffer any hull damage. The aircraft carrier, on the other hand, suffered some scratch to the paint and I'm sure some damaged egos. So the incident happened at around 0730 hours local time. We know that sunrise on the 12th of November 2021 was at 0755. According to reports, the aircraft carrier was engaged in training activities, which could possibly mean that they were engaged in launching and recovery of aircraft. So what we need to do to break down this incident is to establish who had the right of way and who was the giveaway vessel. So who was stand-on vessel and who was a giveaway vessel. So in order to do this, we need to go into the International Regulations for Preventing Collisions at Sea 1972, otherwise known as the COLREGs, which is published by the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. First, we need to know, who do these rules apply to? So if we open up the collision regulations, Rule 1 clearly states, these rules shall apply to all vessels upon the high seas and waters connected, therewith navigable by sea-going vessels. In other words, these rules apply to your 15-meter speedboat all the way up to the very large crude carriers. The vessels, we have a sailing vessel and we have an aircraft carrier engaged in launching and recovery of aircraft. Rule 3 states the term sailing vessel means any vessel under sail provided that propelling machinery, if fitted, is not being used. Rule 3 Part G, the term vessel restricted in her ability to maneuver means a vessel which from the nature of her work is restricted in her ability to maneuver as required by these rules and is therefore unable to keep out of the way of another vessel. The term vessels restricted in ability to maneuver shall include, but not be limited to, a vessel engaged in laying, servicing or picking up navigational mark, submarine cable or pipeline, a vessel engaged in dredging, surveying or underwater operations, a vessel engaged in replenishment or transferring persons, provisions or cargo while underway, a vessel engaged in launching or recovery of aircraft, a vessel engaged in mine clearance operation, and finally, a vessel engaged in towing operations such as severely restrict the towing vessel and her tow in their ability to deviate from their course. So the aircraft carrier falls under restricted in her ability to maneuver because she is launching and recovering aircraft. What we do now, we need to establish who has the right of way, an aircraft carrier restricting the ability to maneuver or a sailing vessel. So for that, we go to Rule 18, responsibilities between vessels. Part B, a sailing vessel shall keep out of the way of a vessel not under command, a vessel restricted in her ability to maneuver. So we've established that the aircraft carrier is restricted in ability to maneuver and the sailing vessel must keep out of her way. So what does that mean? That means the sailing vessel is the giveaway vessel, the aircraft carrier is the stand-on vessel. So now we go to rule 16, which is action by giveaway vessel. Every vessel which is directed to keep out of the way of another vessel shall, as far as possible, take early and substantial action to keep well clear. Basically, the giveaway vessel has got to stay out of the way of the stand-on vessel. The stand-on vessel, what is their duty? Well, for that, we need to go to Rule 17, action by stand-on vessel, where one of two vessels is to keep out of the way, the other shall keep her course and speed. So in other words, the stand-on vessel must maintain their course and speed. But this is not the end of Rule 17. We're going to get back to that in a moment. So we established the sailing vessel was supposed to keep out of the way of the aircraft carrier, but they did not. Does that mean that the sailing vessel is 100% responsible for the collision? The answer is no. We're going to go back to Rule 17 to give us the explanation why. Rule 17, action by stand-on vessel, Part A2. The latter vessel may, however, take action to avoid collision by her maneuver alone as soon as it becomes apparent to her that the vessel required to keep out of the way is not taking appropriate action in compliance with these rules. It then goes on to say, Part B, when, from any cause, the vessel required to keep her course and speed finds herself so close that collision cannot be avoided by the action of the giveaway vessel alone, she shall take such action as will be best aid to avoid collision. Then in Part D of this rule, it states, this rule does not relieve the giveaway vessel of her obligation to keep out of the way. In other words, the sailing vessel is not 100% responsible for the collision. Collisions at sea cannot happen in accordance to the rules. If another vessel is not complying with the rules, in this case, the giveaway vessel, the stand-on vessel has an obligation to ensure the safety of their own vessel and to ensure that a collision does not exist. They may take action. They have to take action in order to avoid a collision. So how do we think this happened? How does an aircraft carrier and a sailing vessel collide? Well, it states in the report that the sailing vessel had one person on board, the skipper. On a commercial vessel, you must comply with what is called the MLC hours of work and rest. Now, the MLC is the Maritime and Labour Convention. Part 6, minimum hours of rest. The minimum hours of rest are 10 hours in any 24-hour period and 77 hours in any 7-day period. The 10 hours of rest mentioned in paragraph 1A may be divided into no more than 2 periods, one of which is to be at least 6 hours in length. Now, why did I mention this? I mention this because the importance of rests in accordance to MLC. On the sailing vessel, there was only one individual on board, the skipper. Now, if it was commercial, that skipper would have to take 10 hours of rest in any 24-hour period. But how can they take the required rest if they're at sea? Because under Rule 5 of the collision regulations, it states, every vessel shall at all times maintain a proper lookout by sight and hearing, as well as by all available means appropriate in the prevailing circumstances and conditions, so as to make a full appraisal of the situation and or the risk of collision. My point is, if this individual is sailing on their own, they're on the high seas, how can they be well rested and maintain a proper lookout at all times if you're on your own? Now, I understand there is a lot of solo navigators out there, but it is impossible for them to maintain a proper lookout in accordance to the rules and get enough rest to be able to maintain a proper lookout. Now, it does take two to tango. How can an aircraft carrier allow a sailing vessel to collide with them? So it could be a number of things. They were engaged in training operations, which may have distracted them from their usual navigation. It may be that their equipment did not pick up the radar target because possibly the sailing vessel was made out of GRP, glass reinforced plastic. I've done a video on an inspection that we had on board our vessel. Now, we were a 308 gross ton vessel, and the surveyor requested that we installed a radar reflector because the material used to construct our vessel is GRP. And under the large yacht code requirements for GRP vessels, they require a radar reflector so other vessels can pick up the target on their radar screens. In this case, I highly doubt the sailing vessel had a radar reflector. However, should the sailing vessel being picked up by sight, I believe visibility that day was very good. We do know it could have been dark, it's coming up to sunrise, so you might get a bit of that sun coming up in the sky, bit of light. Should have had navigational lights on. The aircraft carrier, if he was restricting the ability to maneuver, in addition to his normal navigational lights, which would have been his 2 mast headlights, 2 side lights and stern light, he would have been showing his restricted and ability to maneuver lights, which is an all-round red, white, red light in a vertical line. We established that a proper lookout has not been maintained by both vessels. It could be that the sailing vessel may have believed that they were the stand-on vessel, because sometimes individuals don't know the rules and regulations. They see a power-driven vessel. Some sailors believe that all power-driven vessels must give way to them. That is not the case. If he's flying his restricting ability to maneuver day shapes or lights, then as we already established, the sailing vessel is then the give way vessel. What I learned from this is, although these big ships have all the greatest radar systems, ECDIS screens, echo sounders, technology, at the end of the day, what I find more and more is deck officers and lookouts forget to look out the window and browse the horizon. Looking out the window is sometimes the best way to establish traffic, what's happening in your area, and whether or not a risk of collision exists. Both vessels were very lucky. There was no loss of life and no loss of the vessel. Yes, he did lose his mast, but it's all repairable. So it goes to show even the biggest ships in the world with, what you would hope to be the most qualified people do make mistakes, and they continue to happen. That's why it's very important to follow these collision regulations. It is there for a reason. And I think it's important to understand for the solo navigators out there, the risk not that you're putting on your own vessel, but the risk you're putting on the rest of us. We all have responsibility at sea. We all should be looking after each other, and we should all follow the collision regulations as set out by the International Maritime Organization. That's the end of today's video. I do hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you all next time. See you and ciao.